Hello, welcome. We're live. If I did this right, we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube, and we're live on Instagram simultaneously. Internet magic, so much fun. Cool. So the purpose of today, we're going over some basics. I was asked to cover some basics as far as e-bike stuff goes. I've also solicited questions from the audience ahead of time, so I've got a couple questions that I want to make sure I get through. And also, if you had questions right away, put them in the chat. I'll see them, and we'll answer them that way. We also might have a special guest joining in a few minutes. We'll find out. But with that, let me jump right into it. So the one of the questions I got, let me see here if I can share, present, and then I click this button. Ooh, look at that, fancy. I had questions about where to ride in San Diego. I had questions about like if I had specific recommendations for places to ride in San Diego. And the first place I always point people to is the Sandag bike map. So this exists in paper form. You can get it from the Sandag organization. You can get it from us, the Bike Coalition. They have them at a lot of bike shops around town. If you wanted to come by the Bike Coalition offices, we'd be happy to give you one. It's fun to have in person. They fold up nice and small and fit in your pocket. And they fold up nice and big to look nice on your wall. It's all of San Diego County, so San Ysidro to Oceanside, and it's got a whole bunch of different colors of different types of bike infrastructure that exist, including bike paths, bike lanes, bike routes, cycle tracks, and one of the very specific questions I got was about freeway access for bicycles. So I'm going to read that now. The other day I was driving on the 5 freeway north of Oceanside, and I noticed many bicycle signs indicating bikes can ride on the shoulder of the freeway. This seems like a really dangerous option. How come it even is an option? And somebody else asked, may we ride bicycles on a freeway? So one of the things you'll notice here on this Sandag bike map is one of those colors is freeway shoulder bike access. I can see it here on the 125. And if I head north, then there's a couple of other spots you can see it, especially after you leave Oceanside and continuing on the way north. There are specific places where you are allowed to ride your bike on the shoulder of the freeway. There's no physical barrier in between where the cars are and where you are. You're just on your bike riding on the shoulder of the freeway. Why is that even an option? Great question. It comes back to this idea of roads are for people, not just people in cars. And so if roads are for human beings and this road is the only road, it's the only way to get from point A to point B, and there is no other way to get there, then you have to have that space be available for bicycles. If we wanted it to make it so that there wasn't any need for freeway shoulder access, then great, you could put in some sort of bicycle facility that goes parallel along that route. But there is no physical way to get from here to there other than using the 125. And because that is the case, they have to allow bike access on that freeway shoulder. Is that something that the everyday casual person should do all the time? Probably not. Is that something that a small kid who's never ridden their bike before should practice riding bikes on the shoulder of the freeway? Probably not. It exists because it has to. It exists because there's no better alternative. And having more options is generally a good thing, but knowing how to use them and being confident when you do use them is obviously the best thing. So the Sandag bike map exists online. It exists in a physical form on paper as well. So check that out if you want to know more about where to ride bikes. And the thing is, these streets that don't have bike facilities on them aren't streets that bicycles are banned from using. These streets that are highlighted are just streets that do have some sort of bike-specific thing on them. Although bike route, that one that's in green there, is really just a sign that says this is a good place to ride your bike. There's not anything specific about it that makes it better to ride than somewhere else. So that's that. With that, you know what? My goal is to be done with this in about 15, 20 minutes. So with that, let me jump into some of the other questions that we got. Oh, one of them was about roundabouts. I like this question. So let me see, because I've got a specific slide about roundabouts around here somewhere. Where did I put it? Oh, I know what I did. I clicked this, and then this, and then this. Nope. There's a way to do it. Show my background. Stop screen. Oh, there we go. You see it? It was there for a second. Oh, well. Roundabouts. The roundabout is something that is confusing for people, and I'm fully aware of that. The roundabout is something that takes effort to understand. And I think I've gotten questions before from folks who say things like, oh, well, it's confusing. A roundabout is confusing, and I don't like it for that reason. And confusing isn't necessarily a bad thing, almost. Like, there are good reasons for something to be a little bit confusing. Like, it slows you down a little bit, like it makes you focus and think a little bit, makes you pay a little bit closer attention a little bit. Let me go here, entire screen, boom. So a roundabout can be confusing, of course. I would never say that it can't be confusing. A roundabout is different. It's new. In other countries, they've got roundabouts that are much bigger, much longer, much wider. And there we go. Have multiple lanes here in San Diego, and across most of the United States, there's just a single lane. You go down to Tijuana, they've got some with multi-lane, and in some like industrial areas, they've got ones that are multi-lane. But here in San Diego, it's basically just this single lane. And the trick for using a bicycle in a roundabout is there's basically 3 rules that are important to remember. And the first of which that I find most important is the fact that there are no bike lanes in roundabouts at all. It's just a single lane, and it's a single lane for a reason. It's a single lane because it wouldn't make sense to have a second lane off to the side. Every time a car wanted to leave, they'd have to cross in front of where the bike lane was off to the side. So that doesn't work. So instead, we've got these Sharrow symbols that are placed in the middle of the roundabout, and they're placed approaching the roundabout. In fact, the bike lane goes away. You can see on these roads that are approaching the roundabout, there is no more bike lane. There's a place for people to park. And then there's the Sharrow symbols, which means everybody gets single file. Cars are all single file. Cars are not side by side. Bikes are all single file. Bikes and cars are all single file. Once you're in the roundabout, traffic never stops at all. And I get this a lot. I get car drivers who will stop and they'll say, "Hey, you go ahead, no problem." They're stopping in the roundabout to let me as a bicyclist go. And I understand the idea behind that. It's not safe. It doesn't make sense. No one understands what's going on. It doesn't work. So always continue in the roundabout, regardless of who's waiting to enter. And that's the other key, is that traffic entering the roundabout yields to traffic in the roundabout. So if you're waiting to go into the roundabout, then you're yielding in waiting for your clear space. If you see someone coming around, you're waiting for them. And if you're a car driver and you see a bike coming around, you're waiting for that bike driver to come around. And then once it's clear, you can enter the roundabout and continue on your way. But it is these exist for a good reason. One of the main things they do is they reduce the number of conflict zones. So you can see the crosswalks are sort of recessed back from where the intersection itself is. So now instead of on a standard roundabout, someone would have the potential to have an interaction with a pedestrian when they turn right, when they go straight, when they turn left. And that's coming from all 4 directions. And so here, the number of conflict zones is very much reduced. You only have cars that are coming in this direction going across the crosswalk at this one point. Also, traffic doesn't have to stop. That's nice. There's no other else around. I don't have to stop for a red light that's just there for no reason. I like that. So they get confusing. People get mad about them. But I think as we all start to understand them a little bit better, then hopefully we'll all get a little bit better at using them. At least that's the goal. And that's sort of the thing, is that, education is important, but then, infrastructure is important. And then education about the infrastructure is important. And so if we only just do one thing or the other, then people can get confused sometimes. Let's see. I got another question here. Are there this is a good one. Are there San Diego bike rides for less experienced bike riders. I would love to point you towards a little organization called Biking is Fun. BIKINGIS.fun. If you look for the Instagram account of Biking is Fun, they've got information about bike rides that happen. And there are all kinds of cool rides that are happening all across San Diego. And this is the place to know about all of them. The neat thing about bikes is that they are used by a lot of different kinds of people. Similar to the neat thing about cars, they are used by a lot of different kinds of people. And you can use bikes for a bunch of different things. You can use cars for a bunch of different things. Some people use bikes just to race. Some people use cars just to go to work, and they never use a car for anything else. If you're a person that wants to ride 100 miles to get, to Oceanside and back every day, go for it. I wouldn't stop you from doing that. If you're interested in getting your feet wet, getting your tires wet, I guess, then there are rides that don't involve racing. There are rides that the whole point of them is to go slow. And there's not just one organization that's putting these rides on. There's tons of them across San Diego. So if you check out this website, they have information on all different kinds of bike rides across San Diego County. And if you look into the description, they'll have things like distance, and in the description they'll say who this skill level is for, who they expect to be there, that kind of thing. And it's a great place to meet other people and have fun and ride with people you might not have known before. Elizabeth is watching. Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for being here. So yes, are there bike rides for less experienced riders? Absolutely there are. Are there bike rides for more experienced riders? Absolutely there are. You can find these on the website as well. Okay, I got a question here. Oh, what is the point of green paint on the road? Let me jump over to this slide here. Oh, I don't have green paint on that one. Oh, well, it'll be a good one to show anyway. So I get a lot of questions about this. So green paint is something that's relatively new. It started, you've seen it in more and more places across San Diego, and people get confused by it, and I understand that. It essentially is just something that's meant to get your attention a little bit more. It's just something that is, let me see if I can make my face a little bit bigger. I just want to show you all what I look like. There you go. The most common description that I've heard for where it's put is in conflict zones. It's put in places where there are more of a likelihood that cars and bikes will be in situations where they're interacting with each other. And it's just meant to get your attention. It's not a wall. It's not something that's going to prevent you from, a car from driving into where you are, or a bike from driving into where you are. But it's meant to get your attention. Oftentimes it's solid. Sometimes it's dashed. And as we all know, solid lines are solid because they can't be crossed, and dashed lines are dashed because they can be crossed. So keep an eye out for those. It's just something that's meant to get your attention. It's just a little bit of extra things, and it helps highlight where you are not expected to be, not where you're necessarily allowed to be. And speaking of being allowed to be places, how's that for a transition? I've got a special guest who'd love to join. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Executive Director of the San Diego County Bike Coalition, Chloe Lauer.
Hey, Kevin, it's so great to join you for a few minutes.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate you filling out the time and making us look real professional. Look at this background. You've got your name and your title. This is all great. I love it.
My pleasure.
So, what did we say we were going to talk about? I guess I was, the thing that's easy to talk about is like, what are you excited about? Like when it comes to biking in San Diego, like in the next, summer is starting, right? So like more people are outside, more things are happening. What comes, if someone said, what's your like one thing or couple things that you're excited about in the next few months? Is there anything that jumps to mind? Any like progress that you've made recently that you wanted to share?
Yeah, for sure. Well, one thing I'm excited about are two of our standard traditional rides that we do in the summer. One is the Pride Ride, and that's at the end of July. We love to celebrate the whole LGBTQIA community and be part of that and contribute a fun community ride to the whole weekend of Pride. So that's something I'm looking forward to, as well as just a few days later, Comic-Con, another San Diego tradition. And if you're into dressing up, this is the ride for you because we welcome and celebrate really cool costumes. I might be reusing one of my costumes from earlier in the year. So those are two fun rides. And then another thing that we have going on is more bike valet. We think bike valet is a great opportunity for us to reach new riders who might not be as familiar with cycling. They see the bike valet, they realize that they can have a safe place to store their bike at an event, and then they might change their behavior the next time they go to an event. So one series that we're doing is TGIF in Carlsbad. So you can look for the Bike Coalition doing bike valet every Friday in Carlsbad this summer.
Every Friday. That's very cool. I'm proud of us. I think it's neat that, we talk about advocate, educate, celebrate. Those are sort of like our big three. But even within that, there's a whole bunch of other things that we're able to do. There's a whole bunch of other options and these things like providing services that people don't always think about. Like, I want to ride my bike to the fair. Where am I going to put my bike? We have an answer for that. Bike parking is available at a lot of these events. So keep an eye out.
And if you're interested in volunteering, we definitely need people to support us at the Bike Valet event. So if you live in North County, let me know about that. Or if you have a movie in the park series in your neighborhood or your community, whether it's in East County, South County, let us know and maybe we can put something together and be there to support folks in riding to those events as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, Mr. Kevin.
Thank you, Chloe. I appreciate you stopping by. Have a good rest of your day.
See you later.
Alrighty.
Bye.
So let me keep going with my questions because I got just a few more minutes. I got, what is sometimes fun for me is feeding the trolls. So I got an angry message. And so I'm going to read the angry message and I'm going to see if I can address it. It says, SDCBC has not addressed in any way, shape, or form the dangerous riding of young kids on illegal e-bikes or motors and class 2 throttled stuff like Rad Power. Wow. That seems intense. They are a coalition in name only. Yikes. That's a sad and scary message. So one thing that makes me think of is the fact that there are already laws on the books about this stuff. Kids on e-bikes is a thing that exists. There are some people who'd like to make it so that no one under the age of 18 was allowed to ride any kind of powered device at all. Some people have different ages that they want that to be for. The thing that a similar question I got, someone who was saying like, how come I'm seeing 14-year-olds on 30 mile per hour e-bikes? Like, isn't that dangerous? And the answer is yes, it is dangerous. It's also illegal. It's also already illegal. There are already laws that say people under the age of 16 cannot ride a powered device that goes faster than 20 miles per hour. That's already a law. We don't need to do anything extra. That's already a thing. There are only 3 types of e-bikes that exist, and anything that doesn't fit within these 3 categories is not an e-bike. That's just a powered device. And if you want to get a Sur-Ron, it's literally an electric motorcycle with no pedals, and you want to take that device and go, as I understand it, you can take those to the DMV. You can get a motorcycle license. You can get a license plate put on it. And now it's essentially an electric motorcycle. And if that's the direction you want to go for it. You got to be 18 to use those, as far as I know. But that's the way to do that. But if you're talking about using an e-bicycle, then what you're talking about is a bike first. And then it's got a little bit of power that gives it a little bit of extra. And that's the whole point, is it's a bike first with a little bit more. It's not a motorcycle with a little bit less. We do bike classes all across San Diego County for teens. The ones that we've done in Encinitas have been especially popular. Full classes almost every other week when we do them. We've got those classes rolling out across Vista, Carlsbad, La Mesa. I can name a couple other areas as well. I go into middle schools, high schools, and talk to kids about using e-bikes, rules of the road, best practices. They have questions about these things, and I am happy to answer them, and I look forward to doing that. So I think it is a little bit disingenuous to say that we have not in any way, shape, or form addressed these things. I think we've addressed them some, but I also think teens are going to do things that are dangerous. That's sort of part of being a teen. And we found ways to do things that were dangerous on skateboards in the 90s, and people are going to find ways to do things that are dangerous with all kinds of devices going forward. I can't teach your kid to be a good person. I can teach them the laws. I can teach them the rules of the road. I can talk about what's expected of them and what keeps them safest. But when it comes to basic compassion for other people, that's on the parents a little bit, or most of the way, I would argue. With that, I'm at time and I got to get going. So thank you so much for joining us for this brief little informational webinar. We are active on social media and you can find us across all the different platforms. I think we got a TikTok, although we don't use it very often. But we'd love to see you there. And if you had a question that wasn't answered today, please feel free to put it in the comments and we'll address it as they come in. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you on the road. Bye. I got a little outro video. Bye-bye.